The second condition concerns the good fortune required to be a Theravada sage and includes taking the 3 refuges, abiding by precepts, laws, and customs, and behaving in a proper and dignified manner. Mahayana Buddhism is based on the foundation of Theravada Buddhism, which was introduced into China during the Sui and Tang dynasties 1,300 years ago, but it soon gave way to Mahayana Buddhism. Why did the Theravada teachings decline in China? In ancient times, people who learned Buddhism had already been nurtured in the Taoist and Confucian traditions, which were enough to replace the Theravada teachings. Since the Taoist and Confucian teachings were also similar to those of the Mahayana teachings, it was natural for the Chinese to accept them. Thus, the Theravada teachings were not practiced, as Taoism and Confucianism served as the foundation for Mahayana Buddhism. Consequently, Theravada teachings never really developed in China. Today, people learn and practice Mahayana, but ignore Theravada Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism. This is similar to ignoring the foundation and first floor when building a house. Such an attempt will not work because the house would be a cabin in the sky. This is why we see so few Buddhist successors today. Theravada Buddhism is established on a human heavenly basis, which includes being filial to our parents, respectful to our teachers and elders, compassionate to all others, and diligent in practicing the 10 good conducts. With this base, we can meet the criteria to begin learning and practicing Buddhism. To be a Buddhist practitioner, after we have acquired basic understanding, we may pay respect to the teacher and take the 3 refuges of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, the 5th principle of the 3 conditions. We pay respect to Buddha Shakyamuni and express the wish to follow his teachings for the rest of our lives. From this point on, we will have the standards for changing our thought, speech, and behavior. Taking refuge in the Triple Jewels is to take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. In ancient times, everyone understood the meaning of the Triple Jewels. However, today, many people misunderstand the meaning. When they hear the word Buddha, they think of an image. When they hear the word Dharma, they think of a sutra. And when they hear the word Sangha, they think of monks or nuns. The 6th patriarch of Zen, Master Huineng, foresaw the possibility that people in the future would misinterpret the meaning of the Triple Jewels. Therefore, whenever he taught, he would not use the words Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Instead, he used enlightenment, proper understanding, and purity. These terms are more easily understood and less subject to misunderstanding. They are called the triple jewels of self-nature, which are the true principles for us to follow. If we become misled here and follow an individual master, we will remain misled from now on. If this happens, how can we achieve any real attainment? When we take refuge in the triple jewels, we first return to and rely upon the Buddha. For uncountable eons, we have been wandering helplessly and hopelessly in the 6 realms. Now, we have met a good teacher who shows us that we need to return from our confusion, delusion, and erroneous thinking, that we need to rely upon the awakening of our self-nature. Our self-nature was originally awakened, so the Buddha that we rely upon is not to be found outside of ourselves, but is innate to our self-nature. The Pure Land School teaches that Buddha Amitabha and the Pure Land are already within our self-nature. Buddha Amitabha, Buddha Shakyamuni, and all Buddhas manifest from our self-nature. Therefore, what we rely upon is the Buddha or awakening of our self-nature. From now on, we should be awakened and never again be deluded or filled with attachments. For if we do, then we will have not turned back. Next, we return to and rely upon the Dharma, of which our thoughts and viewpoints of life and the universe completely accord with the one true reality. This treasure is also only found within our self-nature. Buddha Shakyamuni taught us to return from erroneous thoughts and viewpoints, and to rely upon only those that are proper. This is to return to and rely upon the Dharma. The Buddha did not tell us to blindly follow him, but rather to be a dauntless, independent individual and to find the truth for ourselves. Next, we return to and rely upon the Sangha, which represents purity of the 6 senses of sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and idea. Most of us will find that our 6 senses become polluted when they encounter external surroundings. When these are pleasing, we develop a heart of greed, which is pollution. When these are displeasing, we develop a heart of resentment and anger, which is also pollution. We need to remember that the 5 desires of wealth, lust, fame, food or drink, and sleep, and the 7 human emotions of joy, anger, sorrow, fear, love, hate, and desire are all impurities of the heart. The Buddha told us that originally our self-nature was pure, was without impurity. We need to eradicate all impurities and rely upon our pure heart. This is to return to and rely upon the Sangha. In summary, taking refuge in the Buddha means being awakened and not deluded. Taking refuge in the Dharma means having proper viewpoints. Taking refuge in the Sangha means being pure and not polluted. These are the triple jewels of the self-nature that the Buddha taught us for our practice: awakening, proper viewpoints, and purity. From now on, we need to forget our past and return to and rely upon these triple jewels and use them to correct our thoughts, speech, and behavior. When we attain one of the three refuges, we achieve the other two as well. Think about it. Will an awakened person have erroneous viewpoints? Will this person have an impure heart? Can a person with an impure heart and erroneous viewpoints attain awakening? The Buddha has shown us these three guidelines to uncover our original self-nature and thus to attain Buddhahood. This is similar to a way place with three entrances. We only need to step through one, and we are in. Zen Buddhism uses the sudden enlightenment method to uncover our self-nature. However, only cultivators with superior capability and purity of mind can achieve attainment in this way. For example, the sixth patriarch of Zen, Master Huineng, only taught students with superior capabilities. Other schools, such as the Tiantai, Flower Adornment, and Three Sastras Discourse School, use the proper thoughts and viewpoints method by correcting thoughts and behavior by following the guidelines in the sutras. However, this requires endurance and much practice because achievement takes a long time and we have to study many sutras. The Pure Land and Tibetan school, however, emphasize practice through purity of mind through cultivation. It is logical that these two schools are popular today in this Dharma ending age. However, the Pure Land school does not require superior capabilities or a long period of time for practice, as it stresses the Buddha name chanting method to achieve purity of mind. It is much easier to practice and thus to reach attainment in than the Tibetan school. Again, although the doors to the way place are different, each of them will grant us entry. Therefore, all methods are equal, and the methods of enlightenment, proper thoughts and viewpoints, and purity are in essence the same. Thus, we need to have a clear understanding of the triple jewels of self-nature and to know which method to choose as the basis for our individual practice. Only in this way will we find genuine refuge. Otherwise, we will remain ignorant of where to take refuge and upon what to rely. Although we may now have more understanding of the triple jewels, we may still be confused as to how to practice them in our daily lives. Each school has its own representations of the triple jewels. For example, in the Flower Adornment School, there are Vairocana Buddha, the Flower Adornment Sutra, Manjusri Bodhisattva, and Universal Worthy Bodhisattva, and the 41 Great Bodhisattvas, respectively. They are our role models to emulate. The triple jewels of the Tiantai school are Buddha Shakyamuni, the Lotus Sutra, and the Bodhisattvas named in the sutra, respectively. In the Pure Land school, they are Buddha Amitabha, the Infinite Life Sutra, the other 4 sutras, and 1 sastra or commentary. Guanyin Bodhisattva, Great Strength Bodhisattva, Manjusri Bodhisattva, and Universal Worthy Bodhisattva, respectively. We learn compassion from Guanyin Bodhisattva and single-minded concentration from Great Strength Bodhisattva. The chapter on the perfect and complete realization of Great Strength Bodhisattva in the Surangama Sutra tells us of how Great Strength Bodhisattva concentrated on the Buddha name chanting method from the time he took refuge until the time he attained enlightenment. He taught us that the proper way to chant is the complementary practice of concentrating the 6 sense organs and continuous pure mindfulness of Buddha Amitabha. Pure mindfulness is to chant without doubt, intermingling with other thoughts and methods. To chant with a pure mind. Continuous means uninterrupted with one sentence following another. This is the key to our success in the Buddha name chanting method, which was taught to us by Great Strength Bodhisattva. Mr. Liang Jiuxia wrote in his book entitled Essentials for Practice of the Pure Land School that Great Strength Bodhisattva was the founding patriarch of the Dharma realm. Initially, his comment greatly surprised me because I had never heard this before. Later, I understood what he meant and greatly admired him for this perception. Throughout the universe, Great Strength Bodhisattva was the first Bodhisattva to concentrate solely on the Buddha name chanting method. When Buddha Shakyamuni manifested in our Saha world, the first sutra he taught was the Flower Adornment Sutra. In this assembly, the 10 great vows of Universal Worthy Bodhisattva concluded the sutra and guide us to the Western Pure Land. Thus, Universal Worthy Bodhisattva is the founding patriarch in our Saha world. Then, after the Infinite Life Sutra was introduced into China, Master Hui Yuan of the Eastern Jing Dynasty, approximately 1600 years ago, built a cultivation hall and gathered together 123 fellow practitioners. They exclusively studied the Infinite Life Sutra and practiced the Buddha name chanting method. Therefore, the 3 founding patriarchs of the Pure Land School are Great Strength Bodhisattva of the Dharma realm, Universal Worthy Bodhisattva of the Saha world, and Master Hui Yuan of China. Years ago, my late teacher, Mr. Bingnan Li of Taichung, Taiwan, suggested that I should introduce Pure Land Buddhism to the West. I established a way place in Dallas, Texas, and called it the Flower Adornment Society, the same name I had used in Taiwan. When I brought statues of Buddha Amitabha, Guanyin Bodhisattva, and Great Strength Bodhisattva from China, they were too small for the 21-foot hall. I thought that it would be better to have larger paintings with Western features to introduce Pure Land Buddhism to the West. Just one day before my departure for Texas, I received some paintings with the request that they be taken to Dallas. I still do not know who the donor was. The paintings were of Buddha Amitabha, Guanyin Bodhisattva, and Great Strength Bodhisattva. But what a surprise! Buddha Amitabha had Indian features, Guanyin Bodhisattva had Chinese features, and Great Strength Bodhisattva had features that resembled a Westerner. The donor had the same idea that I had. The Western features of the founding patriarch of the Dharma realm symbolized the arrival of Pure Land Buddhism in the United States. Thus, the first Pure Land Society was set up in the West. Mr. Liang Ju Sha had been the first to suggest that a Pure Land Society be formed. But it was not to be in China, but rather in Texas. The Triple Jewels are represented by images of Buddhas, sutras, monks, and nuns. They are to remind us of the need to return and rely on the Triple Jewels of our self-nature. When we see images of the Buddha, they remind us to be awakened and not deluded when interacting with people, matters, and objects. Without this daily reminder, we will remain confused and wrapped up in worldly affairs. The sutras are to be recited daily, but not for the benefit of the Buddhas. We recite them as another reminder of how to cultivate our mind and how to properly interact with people, matters, and objects. For example, our daily conduct is an expression of the Infinite Life Sutra when we emulate the qualities which are found within it. The image of a monk or nun, whether or not he or she has abided by the precepts, reminds us to keep our 6 senses from being polluted. We need to understand that we do not take refuge in the individual who pass on to us the meaning and the cultivation guidelines of the Triple Jewels of awakening, proper thoughts and viewpoints, and purity. Although there is an uncountable number of methods, their objectives are all the same. As is often said, all roads lead to Rome, and all methods are the same. Pure Land practitioners should never criticize Zen or Tibetan Buddhism or any of the other schools. Why? Because their objectives are the same as ours. They simply follow different methods. This is similar to our taking a bus while others choose to walk. We cannot say that they are wrong when all roads lead to the same destination. They have the freedom to choose their way. When I was in Huntsville, Alabama, in the United States, a student questioned me that he was confused by so many different methods, and he asked which one I thought he should choose. At the time, there happened to be a ball on the ground. I pointed to the ball and said, "Look at that ball. The surface has points as countless as numbers of the ways to practice. The teachings require you to find the center of that ball. You can reach the center from any point on the surface as long as you follow a straight line. You need not find a second or a third point. As an old saying goes, follow the road and you will get home. There is no need to circle around." He then understood that Buddhism pursues the pure mind. Once we attain enlightenment, we attain everything. Therefore, no matter which method we choose, the key to success is concentration on one method. So long as we adhere to our chosen method, we will achieve deep concentration, attain wisdom, and uncover the self-nature of great perfection. From all this, we can see how important the Triple Jewels of self-nature are to us. Monks and nuns are the treasure of the Sangha. We need to respect all of them. We can learn from the good ones, as well as from those who do not follow the guidelines and rules. We emulate the former and use the latter to serve as negative examples. If we fail to understand that taking refuge in the Triple Jewels does not mean following a certain person, then there will be most serious consequences as we fall into the Avicii hell. Why? Throughout the universe, there is only one Sangha, an integral entity. The Sangha in our present world is just a part of this whole. We should not take refuge in and follow only one individual monk or nun and regard that person as our only teacher and not respect any others. By doing so, we will be splitting and sowing discord among the Sangha. The fifth of the 5 deadly offenses of murdering our father, murdering our mother, causing a Buddha to bleed, killing a Bodhisattva or Arhat, and disrupting the unity among the Sangha. Therefore, it would be even worse to choose a certain monk or nun for refuge than not to take refuge at all. Furthermore, we only need to take refuge one time. It does not accomplish anything to take refuge from one person this time and then another person the next time. We may think that we can get more protection if we follow many monks and nuns. However, as the saying goes, a clay idol crossing a river cannot protect himself. Nobody can protect us. Only when we take refuge in the Triple Jewels of our self-nature can we protect ourselves. Some of those here today may have gone through a taking refuge ceremony. If now those who have done so have a clearer understanding, then they can properly take refuge in the proper jewels by following the principles of awakening, proper thoughts and viewpoints, and purity. The 6th principle of the 3 conditions is abiding by the precepts, laws, and customs. Of all the precepts, the most important are the basic 5 precepts. My late teacher, living Buddha, Master Zhang once said, "The 3 refuges and the 5 precepts are so essential that all Buddhist cultivators need to abide by them every moment." Then he explained further, "It is like a train ticket for you to get from northern Taiwan to southern Taiwan. From the moment you board the train until you exit, you must hold on to that ticket. You must not lose it, for you have to show it when you depart the train." Taking refuge in the Triple Jewels and the first 5 precepts are as important to you as that train ticket. He further explained that if we part from the Triple Jewels and the precepts, we will lose the teachings and we will no longer be a student of the Buddha. The 5 precepts are no killing, stealing, committing sexual misconduct, lying, and taking intoxicants. The first 4 offenses are physical transgressions of the self-nature, whether or not we have taken the 5 precepts. It is wrong to commit these acts. But for one who has formally taken the 5 precepts, this will be considered as committing a double violation. However, drinking alcohol and taking intoxicants is different. A person who has not taken this precept is not guilty when drinking. However, a person who has taken the precepts and then drinks will have broken this precept. The purpose of refraining from intoxicants is to prevent us from committing the first 4 transgressions while under the influence. Therefore, intoxicants in themselves are not wrong. This is an example of why we need to understand the purpose of the Buddha's precept setting, its function, and its benefit. When deciding whether to formally take the 5 precepts, the essence of all the precepts, we need to ask the Dharma Master to explain exactly what they mean. Only then will we know if and how to abide by them. Merely reading a book on the precepts does not necessarily ensure our commitment to keeping them. Some people have complained that there are too many precepts and that it is too easy to violate them. Thus, they abandon abiding by the precepts. This is why most people prefer reading or listening to talks about the sutras while avoiding those on precepts. We need to remember that precepts guide us in our behavior and are the proper conduct of all Buddhas. If there were no precepts, there would be no Buddhism. If there were no courtesies, there would be no Confucianism. Merely reciting the sutras without practicing the teachings within will result in our not receiving any of their benefits. True learning lies in practice, and the precepts represent the practice of Buddhism. Thus, abiding by the 5 precepts becomes the standard for our daily lives and the guidelines for us to attain proper enlightenment. When the Buddha was in our world, he was joyful and open-minded, whether taking part in daily life or teaching. And it was this joy and energy that affected people and attracted them to Buddhism. It is not meant to bind us, but to benefit all beings by bringing them joy and happiness. The formation of the precepts was to show us the right way to attain a happy and fulfilling life. A good illustration is my late teacher, Mr. Bingnan Li, who lived a simple and frugal, yet happy life. For decades, he only ate one meal a day. But whenever he was invited out for dinner, he accepted. On several occasions, he invited me to accompany him. Since I had been practicing the precept of not eating dinner for years, I felt very uncomfortable when being invited. Mr. Li simply said to me, "Come with me. Come with me." Later he spoke to me, "With this attachment, you will not be able to help people." Why? Because if you intend to help them, you first must make them happy. Eating this dinner is not violating the precepts, but rather is lifting them. They invited you with good intentions. If you reject their invitation, they will look upon you as being closed to reason. Then they will not only reject Buddhism, but will also tell others that we practitioners are arrogant and look down upon others. He may even urge others to avoid Buddhists. So you could ruin the opportunity of an untold number of people to learn of Buddhism. Furthermore, this will result in the creation of negative karma for you. Therefore, Mr. Li was not violating the precepts, but was instead simply lifting them, for this meant making others happy, helping them to learn of Buddhism, as well as according with conditions. When we arrived at dinner, the host apologized. "I am very sorry that I did not know that Mr. Li does not eat dinner." The host was obviously deeply moved that Mr. Li had accepted his invitation. We can see from this that Buddhism is flexible. However, it would have been entirely different if Mr. Li, or one who practices this precept, had wanted to eat something in the evening. Many years ago, when I was young, a friend told me a story about himself. It had occurred during the Chinese War of Resistance against the Japanese invasion. After the fall of Nanjing, some Japanese soldiers chased the individual and two of his friends. The three fled to a temple and were saved by an old monk who shaved their heads, gave them monks' clothing to put on, and told them to blend into the large assembly of monks. When the Japanese soldiers arrived at the temple, they could not find the three. They were unable to find them, and thus they soon left. Thus, the three were saved. When the war was over, the friends returned to Nanjing, wishing to repay their thanks to the old monk. They invited him to a lavish banquet. He arrived to find the table laden with chicken, duck, pork, and fish. All of a sudden, they remembered that the old monk was vegetarian. They were extremely upset over their mistake and did not know what to do. But the old monk acted like there was nothing unusual, and picking up his chopsticks, invited everyone to sit down to dinner. The three friends were greatly moved. Did the old monk break the precepts? No. His behavior followed what is said in the sutras. Compassion and kindness are the basis of Buddhism, and skillful means are the method. He had used the first of the 4 beneficial methods, making others happy. The old monk was moved by their gesture and did not blame them for their honest mistake. He had used the same method that the bodhisattvas use to help people through the Dharma doors. If the monk had been angry, he could have easily ruined their interest in Buddhism. But he was wise enough to use the opportunity to help guide 3 people. Therefore, we again see that Mahayana Buddhism is highly flexible as it accords with the existing circumstances. Let's look at strictly abiding by the precepts. The 5 precepts are the heart, the essence of all the precepts. Expanding further, we follow all the precepts as set forth by Buddha Shakyamuni, as well as the social norms, customs, rules, and laws in every country. When in China, we follow Chinese customs, rules, and laws. When in the United States, we follow United States customs, rules, and laws. In other words, precepts are rules we need to follow in our daily lives. The modern conveniences of transportation and communication have greatly increased opportunities for travel to different countries and regions of the world. We need to follow the advice of when in Rome, do as the Romans do. This is called strictly abiding by the precepts. Many of the precepts taught by Buddha Shakyamuni were appropriate for that time, but are no longer suitable for today. Why? Our manner of living, dressing, and eating are totally different from those of India several thousand years ago. For example, of the 250 precepts for monk, 10 rules on the etiquette of dressing are totally unsuitable for today, as ancient Indians dressed differently than we do. Eating is another area that has changed considerably. Therefore, when we study and recite the sutras on the precepts today, we are learning the spirit of the law and not just the letter. Likewise, when we practice adhering to the precepts, the most important point is to follow their fundamental spirit. Do nothing that is bad. Do everything that is good. To do nothing that is bad is directed towards us. This is a Theravada precept to develop self-discipline and is to be followed conscientiously. It is what the Chinese call attending to one's own moral well-being, even when alone. When we practice self-discipline, we need to remain true to the precepts, even when we are alone. To do all that is virtuous is for the benefit of others. This is a Bodhisattva precept in teaching us how to interact with all others. Precepts are the criteria for distinguishing between good and bad. Because of the differences in the political system, philosophy, and cultures, the precepts need to be modified when Buddhism was introduced into China. The rules established by Master Baizhang in the Tang Dynasty were the modified versions adopted for China at that time. However, the essence remained unchanged. This is similar to a state revising the laws from time to time. As new situations arise, it becomes necessary to amend some articles, but the principle remains the same. In China, way places in every province and region have their own version of the precepts. They need to mesh with local conditions for people to follow them. This is simply a modification. If it is not done, then Buddhism will not survive. Only through this updating and modification will it be vital and constantly renewed, allowing it to be accepted and practiced around the world. The Buddha told us that if we can abide by the precepts and laws, we will have a tranquil body and mind, which will allow us to be free from worries and fears. Deep concentration arises from tranquility. Therefore, the precepts are essential to self-cultivation. If we break the law or the precepts, then our conscience will be plagued by guilt, even if no punishment is meted out. Moreover, even if we avoid worldly retribution, there is no way to avoid karmic retribution. when our body and mind are disturbed, we cannot concentrate on our practice. To practice successfully, we need to be tranquil. It is said, precepts or self-discipline lead to deep concentration, from which wisdom arises. In summary, the second condition, including abiding by the precepts, is a Theravada act of merit and is the basis for practice. The seventh principle of behaving in a proper and dignified manner means we act appropriately for the circumstances we are in. We act from the heart of sincerity and respect for all beings, animate and inanimate, to accord with social etiquette. The third condition concerns the good fortune required to be a bodhisattva and includes generating the Bodhi mind, deeply believing in the law of cause and effect, reciting and upholding the Mahayana Sutras, and encouraging others on the path to enlightenment. The eighth principle is generating the Bodhi mind. Chinese Buddhists primarily practice Mahayana Buddhism and wish to develop the Bodhi mind, the awakened mind that is genuinely free from delusions. It is the awakened mind that realizes that this world is full of misery and suffering. It is the compassionate, the sincere mind, with every thought to attain realization for self and others. The Buddha told us that suffering exists throughout the world, throughout the 6 realms. Not only is the human life one of suffering, but the heavenly life as well. The sufferings of the human realm are so numerous that it would take hours to describe them. Simply said, they are the 8 sufferings of birth, old age, sickness, death, hardships, the inability to have what we want, being parted from those we love, and finding ourselves in the presence of those whom we resent or even hate. A person who has been born into the form heaven is one who has accomplished deep concentration, as well as having severed the 5 desires for wealth, lust, fame, food or drink, and sleep. In this realm, there is no suffering arising from external circumstances, such as famine, storm, sickness, etc. But the beings here still suffer the inevitable consequences of time, deterioration or decay of the body, and finally, the realization that they will not remain in this heaven permanently. With a physical body, we are mortal. We are born, we live, we die. With material form, there is impermanence. There is creation, existence, annihilation, and void.